Hello, and welcome to another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes. Usually when I say I'm ready to roll, he gives me like another minute and a half. He just hit it. So here we are. How are you, man? We got Matthew Hanks with us again today here.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming in. So this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. I am Chris Gazdick, a mental health substance abuse therapist since 1995. But Matt, I don't look that old, right?
No, not even close.
That? 95? That's like a whole 3 decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't gotten into age jokes for a little while, and I think I could do them with you because we're about the same.
Go for
it. Since you nailed me earlier on, before the mics came on, I may have to get you back on something. But this is where you get personal, direct insights from a therapist in your own home or personal time in the car. You get to see the world through the lens of a therapist, but realize this is not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Help us out with 5-star reviews. Apple iTunes lets you leave reviews. That really helps us get found on the algorithms and the process that whatever they do to help us advertise. So you make a big part. We love doing the show with you. So help us out doing that. Contact it Through a Therapist's Eyes is also the way to contact us. And I always like to say this is the human emotional experience, and we want to endeavor to figure this out together. Like I said on the Facebook Live before we started going, we haven't done a show like this since like episode 23 or something when Craig was with us every day. And I was kind of surprised by that because, dude, friendship is like a big part of mental health. It's a huge part of, what we do to be sane. So thank you. I think I can call you my friend.
Certainly.
So thank you for being my friend.
Yeah, quite an honor to be included as the guest on the friendship episode.
Right. I don't think we say that to friends really readily enough. It's kind of taken advantage of or not really valued in people's everyday mindset. But man, you know what I hear in therapy a lot? I don't have them. And that was why this show got generated. So this is generated from a recent session that I had that I thought was really interesting because, this guy was talking about, actually having his whole set of friends, like a whole group that they knew each other well and talked about light of life stuff in college, I think, primarily. And then life goes on, they get married and have kids and whatever, and he kind of looks around and he's like, I don't really have anybody that I can have genuine and serious conversations with. And I asked him, it felt weird to me because he talks about having these people that are reliable for him. But then he felt like he didn't really have anybody that was really able to really kind of talk about things. And I thought, wow, this just doesn't sound right. And so we actually talked about that a lot, about how to use it, his group, for his benefit, it was like weird to me because there's all these people around him that he's relating to, but didn't really feel that connection, like that was lost in some way. And I thought, man, what a shame. And I thought, man, we need to talk about that. And I looked down on my list, and we had, like I said, we hadn't talked about this for a long time. So thought it was a perfect time to bring it up. And so to me, the differential really revolves around whether people are available for your friendship and whatnot for different reasons, or are we not assessing that fact that people are right in front of us, right around us, and available? So I can't tell you how many times I find this. So I wonder what you thought about when you saw the title. And I'm going to give you an answer of no. The title is How, or Do People Even Know How to Be Friends? Your son was here. We were talking a little bit ago, actually. And be curious what his young brain is going to say after these mics go off. Do people know how to be friends? I'm actually going to maintain to you and your son actually know that they don't really know how to be friends in a lot of ways. Does that sound crazy? I'm curious what you're off the cuff thinking over there when I say, no, people do it all the time, but they don't really know, I think, a lot about the depths of it, right? Does that sound crazy?
I think if they'll take the time to stop and think about it, we probably do, because I think we all interact with so many people out in the world, and those who are friends, you can tell the difference. This person's a friend, this person's not a friend. And so through that process, if you'll stop and think, well, I can be more like the people that I would consider friends. So we know how to be friends.
Say that last line again.
So we have we know all these people as we travel through life,
Right.
and there are some that will be friends to us, and some who aren't. And
Right.
if you'll think about the ones who are, then if you just think about that, you're like, well, then I can be more like that. If I wanted to be a friend, I could just simply be more like what is it about these three people in my
People
life
that you liked, the people that you got to know.
They seem friendly. They are available. They are helpful. They seem to care about me. We enjoy doing things together, stuff like that. The people that you would consider friends. Okay, well, what is it about them that makes them different from all the other people you know? If you know 300 people, and 3 of them you would say friends, well, what's different about those 3? And if they say, well, it's this,
These characteristics.
okay, well, then do that.
Yeah.
If you want friends or you want to be a friend, then be more like the people who you would consider your friends.
I just think it's so funny to me. And you think about your own circles, and you meet a lot of people being a real estate agent and whatnot, right? Like, how many times do you hear people talking about, like, dude, I don't have anybody to call, go get a cup of coffee with. I don't really have people that I can talk to.
Well,
I don't really have people that I really rely on, acquaintances. I mean, we have a lot of those generally, but I can't tell you how often I hear that. Mm-hmm. Do you hear that a lot?
Well, so I think real estate is one of the times I do hear it, because if someone's moving from one area, let's say they get a job transfer.
Sure.
And they're going to move to Denver, Colorado.
Right.
And away they go to Denver, and I'll hear it in their conversation and what they're looking forward to about Denver. Maybe they want to ski, they want to check out a Broncos game, this and that. Okay, well, what are you not looking forward to? What are you apprehensive about? What are you nervous about?
Right.
I don't know anybody there.
Those, right?
Hey, I may check out a Broncos game, but what am I going to do it by myself?
Right. Great
restaurants there. I'm going to go eat by myself.
Right. And you got your partner, maybe. You got your person you're going with. And a lot of times the relationships kind of suffocate into that. And we lose all of these people that are, I feel like, generally, opportunistically all around us. But yet people feel like, in a move or in a life change major like that in some way. But I'm thinking, I hear it all the time, like for people that have been here for the 20 years they've been here or whatever. And it's amazing to me because there really are people all around to develop those relationships with. But yet people feel, loneliness has become an epidemic, right? Loneliness is like people feel more lonely now than they have. Honestly, maybe in the history of man to a certain extent, I think I might even say. And some of that we know, we've kind of gotten some psychology studies a little bit and figured out like what is the social media era that we're in doing. It's separating people. They're more lonely. I don't think people know how to be friends very well for all of those kind of reasons.
I don't know that I would argue with that a whole lot.
Yeah.
We were watching a special, it was a week or so ago, and it was about maximum security. It was I mentioned Colorado. It was actually in Colorado.
Okay.
This maximum security place, and it was just where they put the worst of the worst.
Well, like a prison. Oh, you're talking about prison, yeah.
Prison. Well, beyond prison. Yeah, I mean, there's like
Alcatraz level.
It was, it's and if I thought about it for a second, I could think of it, but it's just south of Colorado Springs in Colorado. But they said over 23 hours a day, they're alone.
Yeah.
So it's a form of punishment.
Right.
And that's one of the hardest things for those people to have to deal with.
Oh, it's horrible.
You're just by yourself.
Honestly, that's a form of torture. Mm-hmm. People, when you're purposely doing torture and strategies around the world, is isolation. Sensory isolation, blindfolding, auditory stuff. I mean, you military-wise probably know better than I do with a lot of that stuff, but literally not being in anyone else's presence for extended periods of times. I don't know how long it would be. You literally become psychotic. Mm-hmm. You start hearing stuff that's not there. You start doubting reality testing. Like you become legit diagnosably psychotic. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen some. I don't know what you said. You saw that on an episode or a program or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
something we were seeing. But that was one of the things that stood out to me because they said they talked about it being a specific thing that they would watch them go through because they can't interact with anybody else. It's just too dangerous.
Yeah,
these are the worst of the worst.
Right.
And so it's kind of for their own protection type of thing. But they literally can't interact. It's just they're that far gone, and they'd be separated So when I think of friendship, to me, it's the opposite.
Right.
So when you need friends, you need that interaction, that community, that social component.
Right. Right. Yeah, you want a mental health tip, man, you figure out, what am I going to do? How do I manage mental health? How do I manage the experiences that I'm having in life? Well, a big tip is utilize friendship. That's almost, kind of at the top of the list. I haven't really thought about it, but I often say the cornerstone of mental health is self-care. Well, here's another one, by the way. I think I've got it somewhere in the show notes, Neil. We definitely are storing up quotes and things. This is one that needs to be in there for sure. Friendship is the antidote to loneliness, right? So when you're going through separation or divorce, when you're dealing with grief and loss, when you're going through a major transition, like you said, you see it in real estate all the time, when you're going through a graduation and, fears and doubts about your life track, when you're having just any major life transition, honestly, loneliness kicks in. Loneliness is a big part of what we experience, and friendship is the antidote to loneliness. That is, I think I created that one, man. Now I can document it from a couple of years ago and claim it because, boy, I think it's just so true. Bottom line, one of the front end things to do, better than medications, maybe not better than exercise. Ooh, that's an interesting thought in real time. You know how we're so pharmaceutically oriented in our healthcare industry in the West? Well, throughout the world, they have a totally different frontline response to mental health conditions. So you go into a doctor in the States here, I don't know where really, I'm just going to say the States because I know it's pretty much that way here. I don't know where it is in other developed countries and whatever, but you start describing, hey, I got this compulsions, I've got, these depressions, whatever. And they're like, okay, well, here's the prescription. This is what we've got. It's first line treatment response. You know what they say when you go over in Switzerland or Europe and different places around the world, probably Yugoslavia, you go in, you start describing your symptoms. I've been feeling sleepless and feeling myself irritable and I'm having a hard time concentrating and all this kind of whatever. Do you know what their first response is? What's your exercise routine? That's what they ask about. And that's what they design. And that's what they work with people. So honestly, I think it would be awesome to add a second tier response before medications. I'm going to make that bold statement. That's my new thought, honestly, in the moment. Exercise is probably one of the most important things to consider as you respond to mental health. Friendship needs to be second, maybe third tier. I would say friendship and looking at the relationships that you have to get, we call it a social support network, before you get to a response of medications. What do you think about that? I would love to see that. Because then you're going to evaluate, like, okay, well, who do I talk to? Who do I relate to? Mm-hmm. You can even get, like, survey questions up and, 5 questions. Like, how many times have you seen somebody in your outside of the scope of your immediate family that you live with that you've had contact with on the phone, verbal conversation, social contact? What's the level of relationships that you have? How many do you have? Get those things addressed, and I think we might get off of medication. How about that?
Well, for some people.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Replace Prozac with exercise routine, relationship evaluation, then you can go to medications. I don't know. Call me crazy, but I think that's probably fairly
I don't see
true.
where it hurts.
So Wikipedia, you like Wikipedia? That's a funny source, isn't it?
Wasn't around when I was growing up.
Right.
When we were growing up, because you were before me.
I like to Google definitions and play around with my show prep a little bit when I'm thinking about a topic. But I thought their definition of friendship was really pretty cool. A relationship of mutual affection between people. And I thought, isn't it interesting to think about the word affection? Now, we're both dudes, I guess that gets edgy. That gets weird, right? Do you have affection towards your friends? I'm going to say yes.
Sure.
Absolutely. You don't hang out with people that you just disrespect or, don't have any connection with or don't enjoy in some way, don't admire in some way. All those things are, you show affection. And I think people are afraid of that. It's kind of like edgy, scary, uncomfortable. Honestly, I'm asking you, what do you think in the way of, well, I guess we'll get to it, and, how do we, make friends, or, how do people go about it? But if I were to say to you, developing friendships is like dating, what does that do in your brain? Weird?
Maybe a little bit. I wonder if we're really seeing the real side of each other in some dating. You're putting up that image that you want them to see through some of the dating, at least initially. And I think of friendships is when you really get into friendship, it's past that point of image and putting on for each other, that type of thing.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, right? When you're dating, you're kind of putting up an image and putting masks on, showing the best, your best foot forward and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to maintain to you that we do that with friendships as well, right? Particularly when we don't know somebody very well. When our group started, our mastermind almost, right? None of us really knew each other. I don't know who knew each other really pre-meeting, but would you say it's a whole lot different now in the way that we talk about things than when we started, right?
Yeah, and that's where I feel like dating. If you're talking dating, I'm thinking, you're just starting, scratching the surface, getting to know somebody, spending time with them, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But friendship, if you have one true friend, just a handful of true friends over the course of a lifetime,
you're rich.
Right. And that's just, you're way past the point of just getting to know one another.
Right.
There's a level of trust and commitment, and hey, I can say what I need to say, and you're not going to turn your back on me. Things like that.
I think the point that I'm making is that does not come very quickly or easily. Matter of fact, the level of trust issues that people generally have, you grow into that. And so when you're talking about, like, I don't really have people that I connect with or talk to, what am I going to do? How do I go about this? Well, it's really a lot like you do dating. You build that with somebody. It doesn't just happen naturally. And it's funny. Few years ago when we were talking about friendship, I know Craig was kind of like, "Man, I never thought about this way with these things." He's like, "For me, it just happens organically," and I think that happens a lot of times for people. But if you're really being purposeful, think about it. My mental health is struggling. I need to be purposeful about my exercise routine. What am I going to do? What will I engage? What will my schedule be? What's my plan? Then you execute that plan, and you get body benefits from it. Really, right? Well, if I sit down with you and I say, okay, well, let's get a friendship social plan. What's your plan? How do you go about that? I get nothing but crickets, right? Because, again, I don't know that people are functional on a high level. It just sort of happens. You just meet people, and like you said, you see connections, you see characteristics, you develop trust, you think back on the people. Well, what about thinking forward on the people that you may develop a friendship with? That's an interesting question. Do you think people look backwards in their relationship and identify people as friends? Or do you think people look forward in the relationship with somebody and identify them as a possible friend? I'm curious. What do you think? Do people look forward and identify, like, I hope that we can be friends with this person?
Might depend on what stage of life that you are.
Okay.
I think about, like, Gabe. He's here with me, 12
Yeah,
years
your
old.
son. Yeah, 12.
He's looking probably forward as to who could be good friends. We were talking about it earlier because, now that we've moved, we're in a new house, we're in a new neighborhood, proximity, and, his brother and sister have friends that happen to be in that area. His friends aren't. But,
Right.
So it's like, well, okay, so now we're looking forward. Well, who can be a friend?
Yep.
Who has common interest? Who can we connect with? Who can we get together with, spend time with? And who would be on that list that we would consider quality, like you really should want to be friends with that person? Seek them out. Be a friend. We were talking about it earlier today.
Yeah.
I say if you want those people in your life that you would consider friend, well, let's do this, this, and this to be friends to them. And we don't necessarily know how to do that, as you were opening the show with. So, and I'll give you a specific example if you want me to.
Sure.
So, somebody that might be in that category of, they could be a friend.
Right.
You invite them over. Y'all hang out, do this together, play games together, whatever you're going to do. And asked the question to him. He's fair skinned, redhead. Okay,
Your son.
So
okay.
yeah, so and they were hanging out, and this kid happens to tan easily.
Okay.
Okay, Gabe doesn't. So he comes across the question. So hey,
burns.
Yeah. So why don't you tan? So I said, hey, he just may be curious.
Yeah.
But in asking the wrong way or at the wrong time or in front of the wrong audience, that could come across like you're trying to bring somebody down or insulting or
All sorts
you
of
don't
things can start
value
happening.
that. Right. And now we're off course.
Right.
When there could be a long-term friendship there because they
love
got
it.
every opportunity to spend time together. And but I think it's all in the intent behind that. I don't believe he intended for that to come across the way it did to Gabe in that moment.
See, that's the thing, and that's what I want to get into. The end segment that we're going to go on to is an interesting article, and it talks about. It was interesting to talk about the different factors that do pop up in that developing relationship and what happens and how do you handle potential problems in friendship, because people don't think about that. Again, we don't process that. We just feel like this happened organically. It just happened naturally. And there are so many things. I'm glad you used that example because there are so many things that in the beginning of a potential friendship, which is super valuable, you can have things like maybe your son experienced, in the beginning of it, and it blows up and you never know it, and you just go apart your separate ways and live life. But that could be a really good, valuable resource in your life that just blew up.
So, but the potential is there for this young man and my son to be lifelong friends. That's something I could look back 20 years on, and I just it's a nothing. Or it could be the type of thing that pushed them apart. And hey, I kind of felt this way when he asked that, even though the intent wasn't there to bully or to put him down or to embarrass him or, call him out, that type of thing. The intent's not there. I feel certain of this because I know the young man.
Observed him, yeah.
Right. And so I said, hey, this might be a coachable moment where, you guys are kind of on the same level with age and all. But if you recognize that as maybe an inappropriate question, or maybe you took it the wrong way.
Slammed or criticized.
So, hey, in the right moment, maybe mention something to him because he's growing and developing and learning just like you are. So maybe, how could you be a friend to him and show him what a friend would do? Maybe ask him that question at some point.
Now
Say,
you're getting advanced.
Right. And don't do it in front of people.
Setting,
If you
timing,
setting, whatever.
all those
Hey,
things.
you got, because you know how, 13, 14-year-old boys are, they want to be tough in front of their friends. But sometimes when it's just the two of y'all are hanging out, whatever. So, hey, you remember when you asked me that? Why would you ask that? Or what were you getting at? And that same thing can be applied in whatever might be something that didn't really sit well with me.
It's funny. You asked the question, who's better at managing friendships and stuff? Do you think kids are or adults are? And I love how you're talking about it. And I know you better than some. I think we can call each other friends, and we've talked about a lot of different things. So you're thoughtful about these things. You know what I fear the advice is that kids get when they kind of get frustrated with school and social friends, particularly middle school and all, when kids are struggling. You know what I think the advice they get? Well, just go talk to people. You're going way advanced in relationship development, right? Like, because those are some of the things we talk about with dating, and, major stresses when you're dating and how do you develop that relationship? I mean, so you're getting ahead of the game, which I love, is how do you develop these things? How do you foster these relationships? How do you support these relationships? Honestly, how do you create these relationships? Because I think kids are actually better about it than adults are. I would maintain that. Do kids know how to be friends? I think they probably do better than adults do.
Well, they connect quickly. You have two couples get together for dinner. They both have kids, and the kids have never met each other, and they'll come together. Oh, okay, what's your name? Oh, I'm Bill. Okay, well, I'm John. I'm into Fortnite. I am too. Boom. That's all it took.
Right.
And
now
then
they're
they
off
are
and just
best buds
hanging
from
out
that
and buddies,
point
right?
forward. Yeah.
I'm going to make a bold statement. This conversation is making me suppose out loud. I'm going to make a proposal that I think that's because there's not as much built up insecurities and emotional baggage and distrust that adults get jaded and we've been harmed. We've had friendships blow up. We've had people mistreat us so much more so. And so we're very much more on guard than particularly the younger the kid. I mean, elementary school kids are just all one little Google of kids just, hanging out. They just don't have that harm that's been built up, I want to submit. Adults do. Therefore, because of that reason, we're not as good at this. Does that sound? I think that sounds interesting.
I think that's true. I mean,
Right?
life
Once
experience.
bitten, twice shy.
Yeah, I mean, because if there's one thing you'll realize given a little time in life is that not everybody's your friend, or not everybody that comes across as your friend is a true friend. I mean, you
get
learn those
guarded.
lessons. Yeah,
Get guarded.
and they'll stab you in the back, or they'll use you and abuse you, or
Because one of the big things about friends in making them and developing them is vulnerability. I mean, you've got to let them know in an open way what's really going on if you want to engage or broaden or improve the scope of that relationship. As a matter of fact, one of the tips, I don't think I even thought about it in a show prep. One of the things I kind of propose to people is, just sort of an emotional fact, if you will. I love that term, an emotional fact, because emotions aren't factual, but as close to you can get as factual. If you want to strengthen the level of friendship that you have with somebody, then you must increase the level of vulnerability and disclosure that you have currently. You have to extend trust, faith. How good do you think are people at that?
well, always be cautious about putting your faith in people, because what I found over the years is it's only a matter of time. They're going to let you down.
This is why kids make friendships easier. I
Because they haven't been down that road
kids make
yet.
friendships easier.
They don't have that emotional baggage and the history. So just jump in.
Absolutely. Sort of reckless disregard, which can be impulsive and bad sometimes, which is why we have parents helping us out sometimes as well, right? So here's the way I define friendships, kind of going back to that. I like to think of it as contact outside of the purpose point. And the reason why I thought about that is, and this is a pet peeve, and anybody out there that I offend, I'm sorry, because I hear people saying this, and it's just, to me, the word friend and friendship, like, dude, those are big words. I don't use them flippantly. If I call you a friend, like, that's a big statement in my realm, because I hear people kind of say this all the time. Politically, right? I have my friend across the aisle. Of course, I don't even hear him say that anymore. Have you noticed that expression's gone away? My friend across the aisle. Yeah, they don't even say it anymore. But yeah, I'm in a group. In Cub Scouts, like, my friend John over here, he's a fella dad, or, we have all kind of friends in churches, or people will kind of say, we're like family at this work agency, but you don't have any engagement outside of the church that you go to, or the workplace. There's no engagement in life. I'm not calling you at 2 a.m, or even trusting you to let you know what's really bothering me when I come into work. On a small and simple level, these are not friends. Yeah, so many people use that word, and you're not friends in my mindset.
It's like love. We say love can be used for a lot of different things.
Right.
I love this hamburger.
Yeah.
And then we say that about our spouse.
Right.
It's like, and same with friends.
Is it a spouse or is it a hamburger?
Yeah. Well,
I love you, honey, just like I love the hamburger.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very, very different. Same word. And friendship, I think it's the same thing.
It is.
To say friendship, and it means very different things.
It does. And that's why I think we need to understand what it is that we're talking about as well. By the way, circling back, or actually going into the segment of how do you make friends and stuff, right? We've talked a lot about that. What are you talking about when you're talking about making friends? Do people even know? Because we can make acquaintances just like that. It's super easy. But are you talking about developing a friendship? We're not talking about just having a conversation with somebody. We're talking about a whole different level.
Yeah.
That's foreshadowing. A whole different level of relationship sometimes. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think people think about that. So, where am I at anyways?
You ever heard of the friendship formula?
The friendship formula.
There was a book about friendship. It was called The Friendship Formula.
Okay.
Is that okay if I mention that?
Yeah, no,
on the
go
show?
hit it. I don't know what,
'cause I was gonna
because I've never
mention-
heard it. This is new.
Well, so the Friendship Formula, a modern guide to friendship in all its forms, because I had done a training with my mentor, and he brought this. He discussed this book.
See, I knew you were thoughtful about this stuff a lot more than most people.
Caroline Millington
Okay.
is the book's author, but I'll go ahead and do a spoiler of what the actual formula is. She
Okay.
put together a formula. So friendship equals proximity times frequency plus duration
Okay.
times intensity.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot in that. Friendship
'Cause
equals proximity. These are all multipliers. Proximity,
Yep, multipliers, and then together multiplier is frequency plus duration.
frequency plus duration.
So how often do you
Okay.
see this person, and how long have you been doing that? Is it once a week for like our mastermind?
Right, and
once
that's
a week,
it.
but it's 4 years,
Right.
5 years. So the duration is years
Oh,
worth.
okay.
See what I'm saying? But the frequency, like if you work with somebody and you've worked with them for 90 days, well, the 90 days part is short, but you've been
How
it's
many
been
hours did you
8
get to
hours
know
a
'em?
day for 90 days,
Or intense life situations where you spent like, a week 24/7 with this
but
person.
you're in an intense situation,
Right.
Like you hear about the groups like 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was a plane that had to land in
Flight
Canada,
93 in Charlotte, we had with these survivors kind of, they had
and
a
they
really
still
intense-
get together
Yeah, absolutely.
because the intensity of that moment that they had to experience together, and that's where the military part comes
Boot
in
camp.
some, because you go into boot camp
Absolutely.
and it all comes together.
Right.
It's 90 days, so the duration is maybe short, but your frequency is 24 hours a day
And the intensity
times
level
your duration
is a high number.
and it's super high.
Yeah.
And your proximity. So you're close, super close.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out and touch them.
Yeah.
For 90 days.
Well, you even think of like things like, the contestants on Survivor. It's one of the shows we still watch, actually. I love that reality show.
That's still on.
Oh, it's absolutely still on and going strong. Dude, they are there all day, all night. Stinky, smelling, working, relationship oriented. And they absolutely maintain, because of the intensity of that experience, friendships for a lifetime.
That's the intensity.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
intensity component.
that's totally good stuff. I like to think of this as a list. I don't have time. We've spent good time talking about things. I was going to get my whiteboard out and actually do a Facebook Live, YouTube version whiteboard.
Part
But
2.
I'll just, yeah, right.
Every,
Well,
every show we do is got to be a
it
part.
really is. These shows are awesome, right? They build on each other, and we could go deeper on different things. But so if you think of my whiteboard here, I'll do it mock for you. I'll put over here the type of friendship or relationship that is acquaintance, right?
Okay.
And you have like a bar graph. Like there's a lot of them. There's a long list of people that you would acquaint to. And then the next one over is fun friend. That's what I call people, fun friends. And there's a pretty good list there too. You could have 10, 15, 20, 30 people. I mean, you play softball and you're on the softball team and you got a poker league that you go with, or a dance club, or your gym that you go to. You might hook up with people and do fun things. So you'll have a lot of these, but it's more than an acquaintance. But then there's a very big line that I'll draw on the whiteboard, and I'll go over here to the other ones. And that line is a trust line. You take a jump over that line, and you go into the area where you actually trust people. And then I'll talk about this column is good friends. And you have less of them than fun friends for sure. Not many. And then you have the next one, which is best friends. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think people are mostly thinking about friendship. Mm-hmm. But you can only have so many of them.
But what you're describing is a spectrum.
The spectrum.
Yeah, I saw
Right?
somebody post earlier said, said you want to know who your real friends are is when you got to move an armoire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when it's time to move.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's when your real friends will show up.
Right.
Because that's the time that all the fun ones, they scatter to the four ends of the earth.
They're fun friends. That's what
gone.
they are. They're
Gone.
they're not. But there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just we don't have that level of commitment. We don't have that level of trust. We're really not like good friends that rely upon each other. We're fun friends. It's fine, right? And acquaintances. You can't expect acquaintances to come into your home and move your armoire. It's not. That's not the relationship that we have. Now, they may do that, and like you said, you act like a friend before you become a friend, and you make those connections and stuff. So you got acquaintances, you got fun friends, you got good friends, and then you have best friends, and then I think intimate relationships, which are really, really close. You know, those are your life buddies. Those are, maybe family members or your spouse. I mean, those are people that, you get to the point where you can say anything to them and, and you get away with it or feel comfortable doing so. That's the ultimate level. And, I don't know about you, but I got a couple of them, but only a couple. I have a few people that are really like best friends, like people that are on a high level with me, and I have a whole lot more good friends level. So you just think about your relationships with people and you evaluate your circle. You might find yourself really being stuck with only fun friends. I mean that, only fun friends that you engage activities with. Contact outside the purpose point, but not a whole lot of that level of trust or genuine revelation or vulnerability or really reliance. And then people will misplace, this happens too all the time. People will misplace their person that they're thinking about and then literally get pissed off because they didn't come when they needed them to move their armoire. What's because they're an acquaintance? What did you expect?
Yeah.
You haven't really revealed anything about life with them. So there's a lot of things that go into that, kind of like a lot of things with your formula. We could take a deep dive on each one of those, but
not my formula.
Well,
I brought it up
from, and we'll make sure we get that life. What was it called? The life formula or the friendship formula?
The friendship formula.
Yeah, we'll have that on the show
Four basic
notes.
building blocks of friendship.
Google that to Neil, or we'll make sure that we get that so that you can check that out. You got it already? Cool. Okay, where do we want to go because of time here? Where are we at? We're kind of midpoint. Matthew, how do they find you, man?
Me?
Let's take a midpoint break.
MatthewHanks.com.
You're the best real estate agent in town.
Not even close.
Yeah, you are. He's humble, boys and girls. I can tell you that he is. Cares about what he does. Cares about working with people. He's smiling right now. He doesn't want me to say this stuff, but it's really, really true. If you have sale or purchase real estate needs, where do they go for you?
MatthewHanks.com. That's my link tree where you can find all the different links to my social media and stuff. Can I give my son a shout out about his YouTube channel?
Absolutely.
He would really love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bang it.
He's into gaming, all kind of different content he does. So it's Choppa Top.
Choppa Top.
Choppa, like a Choppa in the air, helicopter, Choppa. CHOPPATOP.com.
And what's on there?
Take you straight to his YouTube channel. Oh, he's got gaming on there. He'll find other YouTubers he wants to make fun of. He'll make fun of them on there. He took Gumby out in the driveway the other day and tried to destroy Gumby, made a video about it. So it's random content. But he's
hurt Gumby though, man.
I tell you what I'm going to put on there that I'm pushing him for. He's great about impressions.
Yeah.
And he can do Mickey Mouse. He can do
cool.
Kermit the Frog, all these
kind of a
things.
fun gig just to hang out with.
Yeah, but check him out. Choppatop.com will point you straight to his YouTube channel.
That's pretty cool. I appreciate that, man. Good work, Gabe. I don't think I'm going to use my example. So, yeah, I'm just aware of the time and kind of organizing myself. So I want to make a big point about, the lost decade. I don't know if you ever remember me talking about that, Matthew. I may have actually in our group because it's a topic that I am really kind of concerned about for people. And so I want to briefly describe it to you and kind of highlight that I think this is, in our adult lives, really as it relates to friendship, a huge drop-off and a huge alarm point that people get to. We recently redid the episode with Adam that was with us that week, something like about 188, 180 maybe, that we talked about the lost decade on a deep dive. So check that out because this really affects this. Again, these shows bleed together, right? So I actually even see it as your oldest kid being at age 4 to 14. You enter into this lost decade. And Adam was interesting because he had a different decade that applied to him. So it was interesting to hear his perspective and what his experiences were. But this is when you're in, and you're kind of in it now, Matthew, where you get into all of the sports and soccer and the church activities and dance and coaching and just doing all the things that we do to try to be good parents. But that takes up so much of your focus, so much of your energy, and you really begin to lose the other roles that you have previous to being a parent in life. And I'll tell you what, I don't think people hardly have any friendships maintained. It drops off. And that's where I used my example, episode 23, way early on. I talked about my buddy Joe and how I sought that, purposely engaged the process to find a couple people. Struck out, by the way, just like dating. I had some people that I targeted. Maybe they'll be friends looking forward. It didn't work out. It just didn't work out. They didn't really respond. I don't know why, or may not have to be a reason why, but that's the way it happened. And so this happens a lot for adults when you lose focus and you're not purposeful about maintaining and attaining friendships, right? So you look around at our peers, we're really covered because we've joined something. We've engaged in something that's purposeful to have those relationships. Without that, what happens?
Yeah, I see it in marriage a good bit.
Way a lot in marriage.
Because, whenever you date, you're talking about dating, all the focus is on each other. And then you get married and all the excitement is there. The first couple of years are exciting. But then when those kids come along, all the focus goes away from the marriage and goes to the kids.
It does.
And it's by necessity because you have to.
There's only so much resource of time
and
energy and, commitment.
And then the kids grow up and they move on and you look at your spouse and think, who is this person?
Happens and way, way, way too much in my therapy office. Right? And it makes me sad because there's so much benefit that you get. I mean, we're not even going to talk about that today. I could have listed out, oh my God, what would we do with a list benefit of friendships?
Long list. But what do you prescribe then to be intentional about that?
Well, I think we're talking about it, right? When we're talking about making friendships.
Yep.
Really understanding the different stratosphere that friendships operate on, not confusing that, being vulnerable and being purposeful about targeting people that you want to extend trust with and share things, starting out small and then building that up, being willing to deepen a friendship by increasing that. I mean, that's a purposeful correlation. The more superficial you are in revealing things, the less involved a friendship's going to be. And you can go back. I'll end that by saying, you kind of hit it when we give kids suggestions, right? Find out something that the other person is interested in, and ask questions about that. Secondly, find out something that you and that person have as an interest in common, and then talk about that. And then you're off and running, discovering and introducing them and them introducing you into new topics and interests. And you go, that's, that's being very purposeful though, right?
But I think it's natural and even appropriate that it gets toned down. And, think about go through college and it's all about your buddies and your friendships. But then when you become a parent, you better maybe not turn it completely off because we do need that friendship dynamic in our lives. But
can we say that to have positive mental health, friendships are required?
I would say so, but but tone down. I'm not saying turn off completely, but the kids demand. I mean, there's a demanding component to having children, and they need your attention and your affection. So.
Oh, okay. I see
what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying go to zero.
Yeah.
On the outside friendships and all, but during that stage, that's a precious time right there. 4 years to 14 years, and your kids need you.
What my head does with that, honestly, Matthew, is that people really do not feel empowered and in control over these things because I don't think we think about them in this purposeful way that I really try to highlight when I deal with the topic of social networks and friendships specifically. It just happens. It's just organic. It's just got to be natural. I don't know. I can't answer the question, how do you make friends? I mean, you just posed that to me. What would I prescribe? And I'm able to give like some very specific things. I don't think people do that. I think this honestly is a great void in people's minds. And loneliness is a very painful state. And so therefore, this is something that people are completely unprepared for with a big area of mental health. I mean, that's my line of logic. And, part of what we're trying to do is defeat that because it's so valuable. Now, you were doing a transition and a segue. There's two that you just segued to that I want to get back to. One, the transitioning nature of relationships in our lives throughout our life cycle. We're going to circle back to that because you also had a really interesting transition in something that I wanted to highlight that hits a lot of people square between the eyes. And I noted the show, we recently did this in episode 188, again with Adam. And we talked about the dangers of marriage that friendship can create. It was an awesome show to take a deep dive on. And whoa, bully boy, I tell you what, I see this in therapy all the time too, right? Workplace friendships and relationships that have no intention of going south or going sideways, but think about that lonely state that people get into. Think about that lack of a social network and whatnot, and then you find that connection, and boy, oh man, people get caught hook, line, and sinker. Missed my clip. Hook, line, and sinker into something that they never even saw coming. It's crazy, right? So I see this all the time, and I wanted to highlight that we took a deep dive on that in episode 188. My friend's statement that you find what you're looking for, and that just leads to a whole lot of discussion points.
Yeah, part of the challenge is when you find what you're not looking for, though.
And
That's the challenge.
And when you don't know that you're looking for something. So say that. So what'd you say again?
Well, you said that you made the statement you find what you're looking for,
right.
And I'm not going to disagree with that. But sometimes you find what you're not looking for.
So you find what you're looking for, you find what you're not looking for, and you also find what you don't know you're looking for. That's a lot there.
Yeah.
In those three lines.
Yeah. I would say to the married folks out there, it's one of the things that you've got to stay on high alert about. If you value your marriage, you better stay on high alert about that.
Because the other highlight that I had from that show that I want to put out, and you'll see it all bold in my notes here, right? We need to protect our heart and evaluate the risks to our priorities. Right? And I'm telling you, you might think, oh, that would never happen to me. I don't see that. Listen, I'm telling you, like I see this all the time in my therapy office with relationships, oftentimes in couples counseling. And oftentimes people are just looking at me with this idea of, I don't know what happened. We just started being friends, and one thing led to another. I didn't intend it, but what, like, I'm like, discuss it with them, and they just have no idea. No idea. Very, very common. So it's just getting an honorable mention in this particular show, but it's a very important honorable mention, and it's one that I want to point you to episode 188 on, because that is a really important deep dive that we put on this issue. So the other transition that you had that's interesting is, if you think about it, I really want to spend a moment on the transient nature of relationships, right? So if you think, because I think this causes a lot of pain for people, the transient nature of friendships, right? I want to normalize this. I want to help people understand that this is the case. I want to help people understand that you can manage this and that you're empowered to be in control of something that's a hugely important part of your life, your social support network. So you see this all the time in major changes that people are going through coming into town or leaving town. You pointed it out. It's an awesome example. Think about throughout the different stages of your life. Can you think of times where you're almost needing to start over? My son just graduated last year. Gabe's young. He's got several more years before he experiences, but he's got all these friends, all these people that are around him. And then what happens at graduation? Poof, right? I don't talk to anybody from my high school, honestly. It's goose egg. And I moved out of town. That's probably in part kind of why that is. Marriage. Do you have like a little bit of a, like, do you hang out with your single buddies after you get married? Divorce or separation, right? There's these life experiences that are highly transitional. Mm-hmm. And I think it catches people cold. I think it catches people way off guard. And then at a specific time when you need people to really rely on, they're not there. The lost decade, is another example of that. Retirement. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to through the years about retirement. They are struggling with loneliness, right? Because all of their, we now know, acquaintances and fun friends were tied around work, and they don't really have anybody but their spouse. Mm-hmm. You see the transient nature of friendships and how people get caught kind of with their pants down, totally unprepared with a super important part of their life.
And I discussed this with my wife earlier today.
Why had you talking about friendship today, didn't I?
Friendship?
Or was it just ironic?
This is no joke, because I know you mentioned this, but I don't have this much level of detail before the show. But the thing we're talking about is we're helping multiple people right now who happen to be moving, be in real estate, helping these folks move, but they're moving out of the area. I mean, like really out of the area.
Like to another state.
Right. They're moving this area and say, well, what's causing them to move there? Well, it's a job or it's a promotion or whatever. But they're going to that place, and we're concerned about them, about what's their network going to be, their social network, and the support system that they're going to have when they get there.
Absolutely.
And Susan and I were talking about, like, well, I don't know that we would really have that big of a challenge, because we're social people and we look for that, and we would make it happen wherever we went. Number one, we'd find a church, because we're so plugged into our church where we attend, and we get so much out of that, and we give so much to it. It's a two-way street, and we would immediately look for what church are we going to be a part of, because we have to have that energy and that support, and that's wherever we would go.
Right.
And then we'd look for other social activities and maybe join a club there and all these different things to get to know people.
Right.
Maybe move into a neighborhood where there's a social dynamic to it. But we would be intentional about it. And she and I were talking about that. But I don't know that other people approach it that way.
Rare.
Because if you go and you hole up there and you're just going to lean on your social media, or you're not going to get out there and have that interaction and get to know the people in there in your space, it'll be tough.
It's very rare, Matthew.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and you'll see them. They'll move and then they'll move back.
Right.
Gosh, that was a great area. People move there all the time. Why would you come back? Well,
I literally had a family member that did that. They did move out to Colorado and came back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot to do with this. And there's another big factor that goes on with this as well. You may not realize it, Matthew, but in a lot of ways, when you're working with people, particularly when they're coming into town and they're working with you, trying to figure this out, where do I move, where do I go? Dude, did you realize you're a grief and loss counselor? Right?
I can go down that road with you.
Dude, y'all should see his face on the Facebook Live and the YouTube channel.
Yeah. When it comes to real estate, I mean, you live life with people.
Oh, yeah.
And we see it all. There's the highs and the lows, but
it's very emotional.
I certainly feel that way a lot of days.
Yeah. It's very emotional because when you're going through a transition and you look around, like, who am I relating to? Who am I engaged with? Who can I go just have a cup of coffee with? Who can I just go watch a movie with? Well, I love my wife. I love my husband. Okay, cool. But, dude, I need some friends. And I just lost all these people that I relied on, didn't realize it, wasn't purposeful about it, and it's crash and burn. The blood is on the floor. People move jobs, and they don't realize that social aspect of it just switches. Because there are some jobs that are great with facilitating those relationships, and some jobs where you're just in a cubicle by yourself. We know a lot of people that work at different banks or different corporate sectors. Dude, they are lonely. They don't make those connections. They don't make those relationships. And so the grief and the loss, you have a task to do. Hearing the show, you'll now at least know you have to facilitate your emotional experience with grief and loss to be able to engage and fight through that situation to reach out and make new friends, right? It's powerful, big-time stuff. Okay, I wanted to do something fun.
Oh boy,
A little bit. Now then we.
I was afraid of this.
It's actually, to be honest with you, putting myself on the spot.
Okay.
All right, pressure's totally off you, brother. Yeah. I'm putting this.
Looks like we're out of time. No.
Oh man, we just got done. Well, you're not on the hot spot. I purposely not. Now I'm thinking about it actually because always feel like I catch them cold all the time. I'm catching myself cold with all this, right? So on our show notes, there's an article, and there's an article where they had. I thought it was interesting. I just looked at it and thought these experts are talking about problems that you find and develop in friendship. And they give I think they give advice about what to do or how to manage this, right? So there was 12 of them. So I'm testing myself, dude. And I set Neil up so he's hopefully looked at it a little bit. He could see if I'm totally off base, or I guess I should say we, right, man? So you with me, right?
I'm with you.
It's a we thing, man. All right, you're my friend. I appreciate that. So these different things are problems, and they say, yeah, okay. So the title, because I didn't read this article at all. Is how to solve common friendship problems. I don't even know the source, the Healthy or something like that. I guess they have, there's really a cool reality nowadays. I've noticed this just as a side note. Have you noticed, you ever have something on your mind, Matthew, you just Google a question to Google, and Google goes out and finds all this information on that topic? It's really, really cool, and I think people do that a lot. There are so many people like me that are writing really cool articles and really cool blogs, and reporters at different media outlets like come to us and we write out a blog for them and stuff. And there's all this stuff on the internet. It's really good stuff. Have you noticed that? Do you
is any topic
ask
under the
Dr.
sun?
Google?
Yeah.
Questions of emotional nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is an example.
It's second nature to the next generation.
It really is.
It's a go-to.
It's the first line, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got an 8-year-old, and he'll call it out all the time.
I don't know if that's good
Daddy,
or not.
Google this, or ask Siri this, or
Gabe, brother, his son is in the studio with us. Gabe, brother, go to people live in the flesh and in the person. No. Take that friendly advice from us old folk. All right, let's get in this. So the first one was broken promises.
Yep, can't do it.
Right,
kill a friendship.
It does.
Because you said the trust.
Right.
I mean, because you break your promise, and now there goes the trust. So you mentioned the trust line, so you're back over to an acquaintance, but it's even worse once you trust somebody and they break that trust. It's
how do you deal with this? Honestly, it occurs to me, you know what? You break down the friendship into a lower level. You don't have to abandon them. You don't have to, go and throw them across the river. You don't have to throw them under the bus, to use an expression. But you probably do need to kind of back them down. If they were, just a fun friend and they're really, really annoying and they break their word on appointments or whatever or times, and you move them down to an acquaintance. You just sort of move away from that. And I think you also really need to work into that relationship and be purposeful about saying, hey, you know what, you broke your word there with me. That really, dude, that stung me. It hit me. I don't like that. You have to deal with conflict in relationships. Neil, I don't know how we want to do this, but he's going to, I guess maybe we'll go back and forth with him.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. That's what we're saying. Should we say, what did they say?
So basically what they said is basically the end of your statement, Chris, is that, of course, repeated broken promises are bad for the relationship, but you have to ask why. Their example was a person's father passed away and her good friend wasn't at the funeral. Instead of being mad at her, she asked her, and what happened was her father had recently passed away, and she couldn't handle the emotional
what's going on? What happened here? Yeah.
So their solution was ask, why were you not there at that promise?
So 1 for 1, man. I nailed it with whatever other experts were there. We'll see how I do. This is I'm being tested, man. Mm-hmm. I think this is kind of fun. The next one they talked about is when things feel unbalanced. I don't know. I think probably on it. This is totally off the cuff, by the way. Just listening on. There's no prep to this. I think that what immediately strikes me probably is going to be a lot of the similar of all these different things. You have to kind of make a connection and talk with the person you're in a relationship with. You can't just go off by yourself, isolate, shut down, and then just be hurt by these things. You have to really engage. You can't just let things happen and be afraid to show what it is that you're really thinking. So when things feel unbalanced, Okay, boundaries come to my mind too, right? Like, simplest way to think about setting boundaries and managing boundaries is say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. Like, people really, really suck at that, and then they end up getting taken advantage of, and there's probably a lot there. Thoughts, and then how do we do, Neil?
To me, I think about there's givers in this world and there are takers, and it's hard to have a friendship when one side's just the one that's giving all the time and the other one's taking.
Be careful about giving too much or taking too much, maybe.
Well, particularly the taking too much, because there should be a balance.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a true friendship, I give some, you give some. That's the way it should work, right?
Right. I think
that's the way
What they
some
say,
people
Neil?
are just wired to give, and some are wired to take.
Yeah, and this is more along his Matthew's line is basically if you feel you're the one that's giving a lot, you need to stand up and say something to the taker. So
Okay.
that was their take on this, was basically stand up for yourself, acknowledge that, look, you're really using a lot of my time. I'm doing everything for you. It's my turn because I have my needs too in our friendship.
I think I'm going to give myself
Or how-
another checkbox because I said you have to talk about it
Neil
and
and I
connect
are
with it.
keeping
No, I
score.
think this was
No.
Matthew.
Yeah.
This what's 1-on-1 right now.
Oh, it's 1-on-1? Oh, is this me against you? Is that what it is? Okay, that's
Neil's
cool. Let's
decided
dance.
that.
Being ghosted.
Yeah.
Boy, just for those of you that may not know the term, I think we all pretty much have gotten into the social media realm with the terms. This to me though is like really like shut down. Like so the term ghosted means that the person's just not responding to you anymore. They don't return your calls. They don't answer their phone. They don't, whatever, tweet, post back to you or whatever. So, boy, what do you do when you're ghosted? Well, so if I'm keeping score with you, Matthew, I'm not going to jump out ahead of time. You have to go first sometimes.
Well, the ghosting, I think you touched
What
on
do
it
you do?
earlier where you
Yeah.
said that there's conflict and there's gosh, what was the word you used? Maybe it was conflict.
Well, you think for a second. I'll go. I got my answer,
Okay.
I think. It's kind of like you want to express your interest in the other person. If you're being ghosted, I want to, like, let's say you're totally shutting down and you've left my realm, Matthew, and you won't respond to me. I'm going to find a way to get a message to you and say, hey, I care about you. I don't know what happened here. I'm not going to pursue. I'm not going to go crazy and come after you. But I just want you to know that I care and I do want to talk to you. And then I'll do that again another week later and maybe a month later. And if it's a really important friendship, I'll do that, every quarter for the next year or two, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And just give you the opportunity to check back in with me without overly, bonking down on you.
Yeah. I just think there gets a point with some people where they've just had enough and they're over it and they don't even care enough to even offer what's going on.
Yeah, and in that
It's-
point, you have to
they
respect
just-
that.
Yep.
And
respect
it.
the distancer pursuer dynamic that you've
Yep,
discussed
yep.
in the past.
Yep.
If you're a pursuer, maybe you check in. But the distancer, hey, that's you ghost, it's over.
Oh,
Forget
come
about
on,
it.
man.
Because that's worse. That's
No,
worse than
dude.
disliking someone. That gets into the I don't even care category.
We'll talk off the mics on that one. What did I say,
Who
Neil?
gets the check?
I would lean towards, okay, so their statement was basically don't try to figure them out and you have to learn to move on.
Right.
Is basically they're solving for this one, because if you're not, you're going to drive yourself crazy. Why aren't they doing this? What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. But so they basically said, don't figure it out. If they make that choice to ghost you, you need to not let it bother you and don't miss out on future friendships and future experiences. So I'm not sure. I kind of lean towards Matthew a little
I'm going to
bit.
call that a tie.
Ding, ding, ding.
Feeling left out is another one. I think we need to move a little bit quicker with these guys, just so you know.
Okay.
Feeling left out, to me, is similar to ghosting. You just have a level of genuineness and honesty about it, and you let the other person know sort of what your real feelings are. Now, this is good friend and best friend level. Fun friend, you just, stop with yourself, stop being full of yourself, and just self-talk it better. Self-talk yourself down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would say the feeling left out is, first thing is figure out, is it true? Because feelings can misguide you.
Right.
And it could be it says specifically feeling left out. Am I just feeling that way and it's not really happening? Or is there a group of friends and I am intentionally being left out.
Yeah. Self-talk yourself down. Yeah.
Because I think you
Clarify
got
in your own head.
You've got to find that distinction. Am I truly being left out of this circle that I used to be a part of, or is that
My
I'm
own
just feeling that
insecurities,
way?
my own doubts, my own. I think we're saying the same thing. What do they got real quick, Neil?
Basically, don't jump to conclusions. Talk to someone else. Kind of work it out to see
Get objective information.
Right. Find out probably what happened and how you're going to respond to it, kind of thing. Is that's how you kind of solve that feeling left out thing. So
I'd say we're doing really
you
good.
guys are
honestly.
pretty good on that one.
I think I think it's cool. We're doing pretty good with what they pre-thought of. Scheduling conflicts. Just check yourself, man. Actually, to me, no, maybe I got a little more. Scheduling conflicts, you have to be aware of the differences between people. Like, you might be a planner. I know I'm very spontaneous. So if I want to do something with you, I need to respect that difference, that I need to come with Matthew like 3 weeks in advance before we do something. But if you're going to come at me to do something with me, you need to understand, like, hey, ask me for tomorrow. That's where that's the level I'm at. So it's respect of difference in time management, I think is where I land there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I say just try to meet the other person where they are.
Yeah.
So if they're wired a certain way, because there are probably people that feel ghosted by me because I got a lot going on.
Yeah.
And my family is my top priority.
Yeah.
And then my business and my clients, and if I can't get out for a round of golf or whatever it is that I feel like is extra to the main stuff that's going on in my life, it ain't because I don't like you or don't care about you or don't want to be your friend. I think it's just trying to relate to where that other person's coming from.
See their perspective. Yeah.
Be direct. If you're scheduling conflict issues, just say, can you do it at this time? It goes back to respecting boundaries. Chris has be tomorrow. Matthew might be in a week and a half because he has all these appointments. So it's just based. You want to be direct if you want to spend time with them.
Clear and direct
So
communication.
you guys are pretty spot on that one.
Experiencing envy. I'm envious of you. I look up to you. You're awesome. I suck. I'm not all that. You're next level. I'm low level. I don't know. Envy, to me, that's the way I experience what that is. You have to build yourself up. You have to manage your own emotions. And we see this in marriage as well. If I'm looking to you to build me up and make me feel good about myself, you're in trouble. This has got to be an internal job.
Yeah. To me, envy turns into a much bigger issue than just, as we're discussing, friendships. Friendship envy, if you're envying a friend, is how I'm taking this.
I think so. I think that's what they mean.
I would say envy's a whole separate conversation.
Yeah.
Because we are not to be envious of others.
Yeah, thou shalt not covet each other man's goods. Or whatever.
And it's not, and it doesn't go there specifically about your friends. This is just envy in general.
Yeah.
So the whole purpose of friends is that I can be there for you. You want to see.
It's about
the other
giving,
person.
right? Absolutely, it's about giving.
So it's the exact opposite. So
Yeah.
I think you got to check yourself. Is it a true friendship if you're envious of that person?
Yeah.
Because if it's a friendship, I
All
want to
about
see you do
receiving.
well.
Are you all about receiving? Yeah. Right. What do they got, Neil?
Healthy envy is good because it's kind of, if it's a competition thing, it strives you to be better. But self-talk and going through like, really, why am I jealous or why do I have this envy is very important for you to help manage when you do get those emotions. So
an internal job.
Mm-hmm.
A friend breakup I thought was interesting, and this is what I was talking about. We did a whole segment on this in this show, I think, depending upon what they meant. But when you have a friend breakup, the transient nature of friendships through the life cycle, I think we did a whole segment on that, so I'm not going to comment much more than that, right?
Okay.
I think people are just not caught flat-footed with that. Mm-hmm. They say anything significant, Neil?
It's a grief. You have to process
grief
it
and
like
loss,
grief.
okay.
Yep. And
Yeah.
that's one thing they talk about. But sometimes losing friendship actually is good. You could have a toxic friendship. So you have to understand that too with your friends.
Yeah, and it's
good
still a loss.
Good and bad friends, and it's a loss. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's good for you, sometimes it's bad.
I'm going to count that as we nailed it. Missing someone a little bit too much. That's an interesting one. I almost have to think about that, I think, for a second. Like, missing them too much really kind of, to me, gets into the abandonment, engulfment, attachment cycles that you're right, we talk about a lot. You have to be careful about your abandonment insecurities and being fearful of not being valued, fearful of not being accepted or acceptable, fearful of being able to let go of that person. They're going to do their own things. I hear a lot of abandonment stuff in there, which again is an internal job, kind of like the envy deal.
Yeah, go ahead.
It just, to me, kind of goes to the overall emotional health of the person.
Yeah.
How strong they are. If you're
right.
If missing somebody a little too much, I mean,
there's a lot going on there for that person. What'd they say, Neil?
Well, basically, one of their takes was if you're missing someone too much, you're not focusing on building new friendships and new experiences.
Okay.
So you have to be very careful to not let what you used to have dictate what you could have with.
Well, it sounds like they had a theme in their thoughts of this transient nature. Like you have to be purposeful about. Kind of sounds cold, but replacing the friendships that you lose and realize you get new friends all the time and you lose friends all the time.
And new friends are new experiences, and you might find something you didn't know you liked or didn't like, and so it's really powerful and really wonderful.
Yeah, I'm hearing a theme in there. Thinking you're bored. Well, again, it's like envious. There's a lot of emotional deal inside that you have to kind of manage. I mean, what are you expecting from your friend? Is this about giving or is this about receiving? Quick
spice it up. I mean, if you're bored, I mean, get with your
make some suggestions. Do something fun. Yeah,
go bowling. Go skeet shooting. Go try a new
Generate
adventure. Water
ideas.
ski, and try something different.
Yeah,
exactly. If you're good friends and it's getting boring, offer something different.
Not feeling like a priority, again, that to me is like the same thing almost as missing somebody a little bit too much. There's abandonment stuff kind of going on. I want to reserve 11 and spend more time on that. And then not enough, well, let's just go to 11 and 12 because I'm aware of the time we want to shut her down. We're over a little bit too much. Growing apart is really a big deal. And that isn't so far as just growing apart. I think that really relates to like you have to be purposeful to facilitate the relationships that you have. And when you're not purposeful, that's been sort of my theme through this episode. When you're not purposeful about it, you will grow apart. You will engage loss a whole lot more. People will move on and move through their life. And the other one is, I didn't know really what they meant, but not enough IRL friends. And it's the social media stuff,
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, not enough people in your life because of an over-reliance on social media. And maybe, Neil, I'd be curious what they did say about that, because to me it's like, get live. Get with people live.
Yeah, you need that human interaction, that connection. You talked about the loneliness earlier with the prison and the isolation. It's that same thing. You need human connection. You need that face-to-face. You need something else besides just comments and tags and likes.
Yeah. So, I'm going to end this again by Matthew saying, thank you for being my friend. I really do appreciate it. I don't say that lightly. There's a very, very valuable relationship to me in life. To you out there looking and listening and thinking about this, thanks for going on this journey with us. And I want you to really understand how big a part of this is to your mental health, and to understand you're not just along for the ride. You're not just disempowered. There's so much that you can enable yourself with, purposefully engage with, deal with the loss, and look to the new, constantly kind of moving, renewing your current friendships and creating new relationships as you go along. This is so valuable, and it's so big a part of your mental health that I know in the pandemic, especially around the world and in the social media age that we are, loneliness is an epidemic that you are empowered to kind of manage. And the antidote to loneliness is friendship. So closing comments, thoughts, Matthew? Thanks for coming along this little ride.
Yeah, very valuable information. You can kind of, one of the things I think about of how you would compare your life to somebody else's is the nature of the friendships that you have along the way. It really makes all the difference in life.
It does, doesn't it?
Who's beside you.
And with you. All right, guys, take care, and we will see you next week.